attack. Sometimes I wanna hit the walls. These boots will walk in the beaten path. Only until the souls wear off. Whoever knew what I had was good enough. Maybe it was too soon for me to be moving on. Worst part is I brought this on myself. Stupid, but better to start again. I wish I could break free, back to where I'm supposed to be. I wish I could break free, back to where I'm supposed to be.
And here we are. Welcome
we are.
to
What
the
is
Signal and Noise podcast live. That is a fancy new transition, Chris, you put together. Very, very professional. Taking us up a notch.
Special.
And that's just a great song, man. I was just grooving to that. Mike Green is he's the man. It's just so great. Special guest with us tonight in his plaid flannel and his fedora, Mr. Jeff Hawley.
Hawley.
The man himself, marketing my show for American Music and Sound, Alan Heath. Very happy to have him here, and also a Signal and Noise podcast veteran in his own right. Proving to us once again that we all are in fact living in a simulation. Jeff Hawley, welcome to the show, man. Again.
Happy to be here in video form this time. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like a rare sighting, a rare Hawley sighting.
Yeah, well, especially these days. Yeah, I mean, my family will be nice. It'd be good for them to actually see I am truly still alive somewhere. And yeah, like back to the simulation. I mean, they've heard my voice, but that's easy to emulate. The video emulation is a little trickier to pull off. So
Yeah, a little extra processing power. Yeah, we got a bigger computer going right now, so it's good.
Yeah.
The mainframe spinning up somewhere.
Cooled by blood.
Yeah, exactly.
We just finished recording an episode with the one and only Dave Rat, which was a real treat, and doesn't get much cooler than Dave. So we're kind of on the post-show high from that right now. And
gentlemen.
there he is.
My man.
How's it going? Can you guys hear me okay?
We
got
can.
you.
Pavan.
What's up?
Not much, man. How are you guys doing?
He's got a Line
DJ
6
for us.
pod on your
Yeah.
desk?
That's right. Yeah.
He's gonna take phone requests.
Dude, this thing actually sounds really good. Like I've been watching some videos on like how it actually still measures up or whatever. But yeah, it's just like my little mess around little box,
And the purple special edition AT headphones that Pooch was pimping the other day.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, you say limited edition anything, and I've pretty much bought it. Like, I don't know.
Hear
When
that,
it comes
Jeff?
to
Marketing tip 101.
Yeah, I got it. Everything's limited edition.
yeah,
Look at this sick little new edition here. Gold.
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yo, that's pimped.
Yeah. Matter of fact, weird story. I used to be in a crappy hardcore punk rock band with this dude named Ash, and I went over to practice at his house. He lived in Camden, Missouri, which is near Lake of the Ozarks when I was a kid. And I walked through the kitchen, and we started to go downstairs, and there was this old dude sitting at the table. And I was like, we got downstairs and we started setting up for band practice, and it was odd. I was like, was that Bob Heil? And he goes, oh yeah, that's my stepdad. So yeah.
So this is
There you go.
40 mic. There we go. Sorry, I
There
had to
we
switch over. Dude, I would just.
I'm thinking by episode like 80, we might get this down, man. We're
So for those who
figure it out.
So for those who don't know, this is not a scheduled podcast. We're just a bunch of audio dudes who like to talk audio, and we're hanging out live with y'all. So this is impromptu here with Gavin and Jeff. So who knows where this is gonna go? Please comment some questions.
Pavan.
Did I not say it right?
He said
Pavan
Gavin.
Brian.
Who the hell's Gavin?
Did I say Gavin? Shit.
That's okay, dude.
He was actually queuing up a Bush song on his DJ rig over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, drop some comments in for us. We'll definitely take questions, snide remarks, taco suggestions, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Did I see the Avantis won another like product of the year again, Jeff? I saw something about that. Man.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, I was trying to just have a nice, relaxing day today, but we keep winning and getting nominated for everything. Like I'm actually having to work now. Yeah, so 3 nominations, not yet wins, but I'm counting on all of your votes. 3 nominations from MMR Magazine, Product of the Year for Avantis, and Sound Reinforcement Line of the Year for Allen and Heath, and DJ Line of the Year. And for folks who don't know,
Wow.
Allen and Heath actually has a totally rockin' DJ line of actual DJ mixers and controllers. It's not my area of expertise. I don't really do much on that side of the fence, but from all I've heard and the little bit of interaction I've had, it actually seems to really be rocking and have its own little niche. And it was kind of interesting to find out too, like a little different than with jazz musicians. There's obviously a bit of New York jazz musician vibe versus LA jazz musician vibe. But if you went to the same gig and you wanted to jam, you can jam. But from what I understand, and someone might correct me here, but as I understand it, at least, like a Detroit DJ thing, like the gear they use even would be totally different than a Miami DJ that's different than someone from the UK. And so the Allen and Heath gear, I don't recall exactly which market it rocks in, but it's like, it's like number 1 over there, but no one would ever use it in Detroit.
Roller rinks only.
So weird to me.
I'm gonna have to test market that when I get my job back at the roller rink after COVID.
Exactly. There you go.
So a couple of burning questions I have after learning all that. Number 1, Jeff, what is your secret DJ name?
Yeah.
I forget how to calculate that. What is it? Your street you grew up on? No, that's a different name. That's your adult film name.
Ooh, yeah. That's a different podcast altogether.
Yeah. I forget the calculation, but yeah, probably, the obvious one, DJ Jazzy Jeff. I think that's taken, but it's kind of one you could go with. And I actually did tour as a jazz musician for a while. I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
maybe that's our new Facebook contest. Best DJ name for Jeff. Leave it in the comments, and we'll send you something. Also, I hear joining us here is my good friend Daniel Lundberg. We're good friends now. We've graduated.
Oh, great. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Dan.
Daniel is a star in the Broadway sound design community. I've learned a lot about theater sound from him, so very happy to have him with us tonight. Is that a denim shirt?
I think it's chambray, but I don't know what chambray means.
What is chambray? So, are you wearing a Canadian tuxedo? Do you know what a Canadian tuxedo?
I am wearing jeans at the moment, so
you're wearing a Canadian tuxedo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's Wednesday.
Beauty,
so, all right, then I have my best dad joke. All right.
Oh boy.
What?
Opposed to all the not so good ones.
Yeah, So, what is Mario and Luigi's outfit made out of?
Ooh.
Denim. And I'm just going to remove myself from the stream now, and we can get back to audio. So.
Yikes.
All right. So, how many production managers
was a wine.
does it take? Oh.
Wait.
It might be.
There's a glitch in the Matrix. Damn it, Jeff! You keep bringing the simulation into.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted your production manager joke, Daniel. Please, let's hear it.
Oh no, fitting. How many production managers does it take to change a light bulb?
It's got to be none. It's got to be a none answer.
Let me look into that and get back to you.
Where's my assistant?
Where's my assistant? I like that one.
So, sorry, I'm late to this. Where in the world is everybody?
Right here.
It looks like Michael's actually in a horror film.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So
My friend Chris over here is a Marvel character.
I'm squatting in the guest room because I'm waiting for the closing on my house still. So hopefully next time we do this, I'll actually be joining you from my real office, and I'll have my real bookshelf behind me like Jeff's.
Nice.
Jeff's repping the bookshelf really. I think for this session, though, Daniel's got a small and distant bookshelf, but it is still a bookshelf. Kyle's joining us from the the barbecued ribs capital of the world, I think.
Yeah,
right?
if you've ever heard of St. Louis ribs, possibly. That's where I'm joining you from.
Yeah, I know. I toured through St. Louis, so I know
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I went to Pappy's and Sugar Fire while I was there,
Both delicious items to have here while you're in St. Louis.
and I think Mission Taco was actually the most memorable restaurant
That one's good as
there,
well.
and very very fitting to bring up on a Signal to Noise
Is
podcast.
that, there's an actual restaurant called Mission Taco?
And it's
In St.
terrific.
Louis,
Yeah.
Missouri.
Oh my
And it's
gosh.
actually good. They didn't mess it up. It's not like
Kyle,
going
you
to
didn't even
UK
mention
and
that to me when we were out there doing AES thing, dude. You dropped the ball, man.
Dude, I didn't live here then. I was still living in Vegas when I had traveled back here, so I had real tacos out there. The weather here in St. Louis is a little weird, but don't worry, you'll get murdered next time.
Okay.
Pretty much. So murder capital right beneath Chicago. Ribs, custard, Cardinals. That's about it.
And stomping
Blues.
ground of Kyle Chirnside. I mean, what more could you want, really?
Me. don't
I
know.
think. Well, I was. You know what? My girlfriend was laughing the other day because when we were out there doing AES, I think every panel. I think we were in 3 panels together, and every single one that we had together, you were late for. Pretty sure.
That's like the whole Kyle time when we do the podcast, because both of you guys are on East Coast time, and I don't know. Like, that's why I need a tour manager. I need my
take
app.
day sheets every day.
Every week, Kyle's like, "Hey, what time's the podcast?" I'm like, "Dude, it's the same
Yeah.
time."
Well, I remember with the episode I did. You came on a bit late, and you were doing something in the Instapot, and then you hopped on a bit late here, and you were eating a pork chop. So it's not only late, but
It's food. I have gaff tape on my floor directing me to catering.
There we go.
So, like, in my house, I have gaff tape arrows and catering this way. So
Do you walk your family around with a flashlight in the hallways to make sure they get to the right place?
no, but everybody gets a wristband. That way, I know for sure who's going
Yeah.
to bed with me.
Yeah.
My lady used to say that she wanted to make something that made the bed vibrate when I was still touring, because I was obnoxious. Like, you get so used to sleeping in a bunk with a generator going that when you get home and the bed's not moving at 80 miles per hour or whatever it is when you're sleeping, you could never tell. You walk up front and like the dude's on the phone and it's 150 miles an hour, or how fast a Prevo goes or whatever. But sleeping on a stationary item after being on tour for 300 days a year, it was odd. But now it's a little bit easier at home to sleep.
And I think, well, this is the appropriate time to shout out to Paul and Courtney Clemson over at the Roadie Clinic.
Yeah.
And actually, Chris and I are repping the t-shirts here.
Oh, nice.
And they
Memo.
set up a clinic based in Niles, Michigan that is targeted at exactly that, people who are having trouble to maybe adjusting to life after the road, or dealing with some of the things that a lot of us deal with on the road and maybe doesn't get enough attention. So shout out to the Roadie Clinic. Chris has all their info, so that's cool. What I'd like to talk about, because I'm in charge. No. What I'd like to talk about is
Watch this.
is like a tip that really changed the way you work. That something that you learn, a little nugget. Maybe it's a mixing thing or an advancing thing that really improved your workflow, and a tip that you got that you didn't end up using because it wasn't helpful to the way that you tend to work. I'm interested in that because. I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about saying that's a cool approach, but it just doesn't work for me. So I'd be interested in everybody's thoughts on that. And I'm gonna put Chris Leonard on the spot.
Damn it.
Yeah. What do you got, Chris?
So cable management.
Hmm.
Right. So, so early on, a lot of guys, when they're getting, or girls getting started off on tours and stuff, and when you're not as organized, and you're just running around patching the stage, and you're just trying to get done. And then when it comes to at night to load out, you have this just spaghetti mess. You haven't paid attention to, which lines are crossing which run over which, and taking the simple step to just think about where you're going to run your cable before you do it. start thinking about where your coil is going to land, at which end of it, and not, half here, half there, or that cable management will pay off huge dividends. My biggest mentor, Will Miller, drilled it into me early on, especially in these theater tours where your space is limited, and your arenas, it's the same cut, sit, and dry situation every day, right? So you can cut your cables, you can measure them, they can be all the same every day. In theater, you have to have excess, so you can sometimes, if you're in a theater in New York, there's no upstage, there's only wings, sometimes you have all this backstage space, so you have to be able to drop things differently. So cable management was definitely early on a thing that wasn't something, when you're aspiring to be an audio engineer, that's not the first thing you're thinking about of what I have to focus on.
I want to tap Daniel for this topic because the Broadway folks and especially the touring theater folks are sort of it's a whole new level of cable management, unlike anything the rock and roll world has ever seen. So, Daniel, can you talk about some of your cable management tips and tricks and your whole philosophy, because it's cool stuff, man. You got a template; it's a real deal.
Yeah, sure. I here I was ready with tips not pertaining to cable at all, but yeah, that's
Michael's notorious for.
Well, don't let me stop you.
Yeah,
Throw it out there, man.
That's paramount though, and I spend a lot of time thinking about cable. So a typical big commercial musical theater will have about 20 miles of cable if you put it end to end, and that might be about 5,000 unique things. And I don't know that there's any one trick where if you do your cable this way, everything will be great. I think it's just make it simple and human readable. Like I think clever is pretty dangerous in sound systems, and a lot of smart people come up with a lot of clever things, and clever things are probably the first to break and the hardest to troubleshoot. So when it comes to nuts and bolts, I tend to go for simple and elegant over clever, and that applies to all things, but I guess it particularly applies to cable.
Let's go with the tip that you were thinking that you got before you had to do the cable thing. What is the tip that you got that changed the way that you do your thing?
Well, so the best tip I got came from Chris Evans, who some of you may know. He's the house sound at the Benedum in Pittsburgh, and I was very nervous before I went out on my first tour, and so I asked everybody for advice, and he said always call ahead. A phone call, not an email. A lot of road folk will advance some rider, which is typically out of date when the venue receives it or something like that. But a lot of houses have a question mark in their head about what that day is going to be like, and you as the roadie, looking a week or 2 weeks ahead in your schedule, have just a question mark about it. And when you get on the phone with somebody and call them up and say, hey, we're doing a pretty straightforward theater tour, couple of towers, center cluster, 13 players in the pit, let's have a good day. That kind of sets the tone for everything from there. And some people might get into the nuts and bolts with you about what your cable lengths are and stuff like that. Others might just say, okay, well, safe travels, we'll see you next week. But when you get off of the tour bus, having gotten 3 hours of sleep after a day yesterday, just being able to say, hey, Alex, I'm Daniel. We talked on the phone. You're already on such great footing that you are going to have a better day than if you just came in without having had that time on the phone. So that has served me very, very well, and I greatly appreciate Chris for the advice.
That's great.
Next,
advice.
Should we just work our way across, Michael? You want to work your way across? Pavan, on the spot, tip that changed the way you go about doing your thing.
I'd probably say, early on, I got the advice to have a healthy disdain for compression. And that's not to say that, honestly, it's not to say that I don't use compression. It's just that, I don't know. I guess when I was in clubs all the time, not carrying my own stuff, they would have compressors, but they'd normally be crap. And it's don't feel obligated to put that on your signal because you need something to control. It's probably doing you a lot more work, a lot more harm than good. And it also builds your ear towards, like, assume that it's going to sound bad. And then if it sounds good, like put that one in the good pile, this is a compressor that I like, yeah, I don't know. That's how that one helped me a lot. Something that I'm not too stoked on, like that I heard about and like I keep seeing and stuff. And this is just because it's me. Like, I don't know. I see P touches out there a lot, and it's like, and I get it, man. Like, I mean, it looks great, looks beautiful, but I've never been able. I don't know. I've always been able to accomplish what I need with a Sharpie and some nice E-tape and like a steady hand, I don't know. I see like all these A-level people like have P-touch all over their packs and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know. It takes it's a small stupid thing, but I like how it looks when you like handwrite it, and I don't know. As long as your handwriting is not like a chicken scratching doctor type stuff, but yeah.
I like both those things that you said. Do you know how weird it is to walk into a gig now and be like, hey, does anybody have a Sharpie? And like nobody has one now.
What?
Yeah, like nobody will have one now. And you're like, oh, I gotta go to this
Dude, we haven't done enough
fucking-
gigs together because I have a bag. I carry a bag. Yeah, see, Daniel's got his. Yep.
Yeah,
And chapstick.
Yeah. Message me on LinkedIn if you'd like an Allen and Heath branded Sharpie. It's an actual Sharpie with an Allen and Heath
I collect those.
logo on it.
Yeah, I'm down. I collect
I'm
that
down
shit.
too. I'm starting a collection. I have
here
a
we
baggie
go.
ready.
Jeff, you got a game-changing tip other than the Sharpies?
Other than Sharpies, yeah, my game-changing tip actually goes back quite a while. So I was maybe 2 years into college, which was a while back. And Michael Grodsky, who's still a really good friend of mine, and I consider him my audio mentor. He was teaching music technology at Fullerton College at the time.
I live in Fullerton, by the way.
And
Yay. Yeah.
oh, really? Crazy.
College is right over there.
Yeah. So, Fullerton college grad. Was in the music program there and actually produced and engineered a bunch of the albums back in the day within the music department there. And Michael Grodsky was an instructor at the time. And kind of one of the things that he taught me that I still try to come back to every day is that there are no rules. Basically, everything is arbitrary. We know that at some point physics will kick in. I mean, there are rules of the universe generally. But he was kind of one of those guys who we would be recording a big band album, and we did a tribute to Chick Corea. It was this really cool, like full big band arrangement of all these Chick Corea tunes. And
Sick.
at that time, I was like, well, what's the most proper microphone to put on a sax section to record and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, whatever one sounds best. And it seems like so cliche and obvious now, but it really took me a while to get in my head. Yeah, there's probably ways you might lean that might be a little easier, maybe a little more down the road, and just kind of like that's kind of saxophone sound most people want to hear. But at the same time, keeping in mind that sometimes the tool that you might least expect does really interesting and fun stuff. There's parts of that album where I actually had a mic that was meant for the Barry sax, that the mic stand started coming loose over the course of the session, and we finished recording the saxophones, and it kept kind of going down further and further. It ended up aiming strangely at the door to the studio that was a sliding glass door. And the pressure differential between the two rooms started doing this insanely nuts thing with the movement of the microphone, and I recorded this totally weird sound that I was total by accident, and it ended up becoming like this drone bed to a bass track that I recorded a little bass solo later. So it's like kind of like that's a Michael Grodsky thing. And still to this day, I'll be mixing a show, live thing, or even doing a video for Allen Heath, and it's like, who says you can't toss an overdrive pedal on this bass drum and see what that does in the background, for video production stuff. So kind of a long-winded way of saying kind of my tip is, learn the rules, but at the same time, number one rule is there are no rules.
Kyle Chirnside.
Oh man. I've been trying to think of something super sarcastic for like the last 15 minutes too. And
Are you losing your touch? You've had a lot of time. Usually
I
you're
know.
quick.
It was all those strawberries and the pork chop. Sorry.
What a weird combination, dude. That's not gonna go well for you like later in the night, I think.
there was this old Brady Bunch episode, and it was Greg. No, it was the Peter came in, and he was like, "What are we having for dinner, Alice?" And
Pork chops and applesauce.
applesauce. And I was like, I've been doing that all day. So I don't know, but okay. So the tip that was a game changer for me, and you can even go back to the episode and listen to it, was Howard Page sitting behind me, making me nervous as hell, and me asking him after the gig, what he would do differently, and that was step away and listen. Quit fucking about the entire show and touching knobs and thinking that you're going to have to keep changing things or keep working. Step back, watch the show, make sure everything is placed where you need it, where you see it happening in the speakers. Make space for everything and stand back and relax. And I've even passed that advice on to some other folks. Like if I was the house guy at some of the gigs I was doing in Vegas, or being a production dude or standing in front of a house, I'd just be like, stand back and take a listen, watch where the guitar is, watch where the keyboard player is standing, spatial relationship. I think that helped my mix a lot. That was tip number one. That was super game changer. One, because it came from Howard Page. Are you kidding me? Like, do what that dude says. And I loved Pavan's thing about the compressor. And this goes for club tours, period. Like, if you don't need to use it, don't use it. And this goes back to the Bruce Ryder episode. When I watched Bruce come into my venue in Springfield, Missouri, the place everyone used to be like, oh, this place is held together with duct tape and spit. The first thing he did before he started his show was took the house EQ out of line, bypassed it completely, and mixed the show. And I was like, holy cow. And he was mixing on a PM2K. Remember, I used to that's all the selection you got, buddy. Long faders and little EQ. So I love that Pavan said that, because a lot of those comps that we used to have when we were doing club gigs, I hate to put it out there, but the 8-channel ACP8s, like, don't even use them, bro.
Yeah, bypass immediately.
Bypass immediately. And you learn control. So when you're talking about control and compression, a lot of things that you listen to now, and we've gotten into this on some other series, is it's all in this box. It's like now you mix in this box and you try to keep everything in there. You lose so many dynamics of your band getting quieter and softer. And especially when I was mixing pop punk music, it's like it's one force. Like there might be a guitar intro and then it's the same level and then it stops. You put compression on that, master bus compression, parallel, whatever, you're just making more of this for 45 minutes straight. Those are my two.
Dude, I gotta say, like, I think when we were doing clubs, like I can't imagine what it's like coming up now, where most clubs have digital desks, even if they're small ones, and like they have comp and gate on every channel. Yeah. And it's like, the engineers that have never had to make the decision of you have two gates or you have one gate and two compressors, what are you going to do? I mean, I think that made us all learn a lot, like especially coming in on direct support gigs where you're like, I don't have a line check. I don't have a sound check. I get a line check, but I don't have a sound check. No, nothing. Like, I just got to know my band and what is it today? Two compressors and one gate. Let's go. All right, go.
Remember the days when you used to walk in and you're like, hey, headliner guy, what channels do I get to use? And he's like, oh, you could use my hi-hat channel, my two overheads, my bass mic line, and these last four channels at the end that don't seem to be working really well.
Yeah, dude. I think you and I shared a desk on a whole tour, and I think we did share a hi-hat and overheads, and I think we got out of like sharing anything else just because like our bands weren't, at that time it was like 24 was a lot, or it was enough, Yeah.
Pavan, I'm so glad you said that because my first tour, I took it over. The first thing I did is I went through the input list and I cut out everything I could possibly cut out. You know, we're in 200-person clubs. I'm like, I don't need 2 overheads in here. Like, that's all gone. And then I said, all right, we're gonna carry every mic we're using. I was eliminating variables because I knew I had bitten off more than I could chew, and I knew I was going to need that time every night to work on the stick. And so yeah, I mean, when you get in, you're like, oh, I have 2 channels of compression today. I think a lot of people that are coming up with the current technology haven't had to make that choice, like you said, about if I only get 2 compressors, where can I put them? And I'm convinced that's why a lot of people say, like, oh, the mix sounds all, I don't like digital consoles, they sound all digital. It's not the console. It's like, because you put way too much processing on there. You know what I mean? Like just be, so I think about if you had to go and put this thing in an analog rack and get that crazy insert cable and put it in and set the gains, like, go through that whole process of putting this compressor on in the analog world, like, is it worth that? And if you're like, I don't really want to do that, don't press that button, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of where I'm at, is like, being very, and that kind of plays into my tip, which was, and I wish I could remember who told it to me, but it's changed like my entire workflow, is try to have a reason for everything you do. I'm not saying don't experiment, but I'm saying every time I could put the monitor down with the horn towards the left or the horn towards the right, like, think that through and ask yourself, is there an advantage to doing it one way or the other? Like, everything you do, if you've been just sort of mindful about it, I find that I work faster, more efficiently. I spend less time sitting there going like, I should do, like, I'm very deliberate now if you watch me work, and it's because I've thought about those things. And so it was a great piece of advice, but I try to do the same thing when I'm mixing and tuning your system too. Like, do you, if I'm not sure if I need this filter, I'm not going to put it in. If I'm not, so that has led to less variables, more consistency, and also doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which when I'm mixing is paying attention to the band, not digging around the console. You know what I mean? So yes, 100%, dude. I'm totally with you.
Right on. Yeah. That's right.
To Kyle's note there about stepping back, there's a thing that happens with any of us when we mix theater, but we get behind all these monitors, and when we're early in the process, we're on a script the whole time because it's fast dialogue mixing, and most mixers will mix dialogue about 3 dB louder if they're on a book than if they're off book, and it's because you're not connected to the room, so you're listening for that confirmation that yes, that person is right there in the PA, and so hopefully you can get off book as quickly as possible, and then lower all the monitor arms down, dim the brightness on the desk and on all the monitors, and sit back and watch the show with the audience for a change, and suddenly all these things will just fall into the pocket when you're in the same room experiencing the same thing.
Right. Instead of trying to hit the cue, is to take the visual cue first before you do it. And I think we do that as well in rock and roll world, is in between songs. Like, you spend the end of the song, you're muting effects, you're getting ready to switch to a different song or switch a scene. You're going through and making sure all your VCAs are back in front of you. So you do that 3 dB thing too. Like, you have a feeling that whoever talks in the band is going to come up and grab the microphone. There's going to be some mic noise. Like, so yeah, there's a lot of correlation from what you just said to what happens in a live situation as well.
Well, I would say maybe a bit of an interesting hop, and something I've been pondering and have written a couple of times about it and got some feedback from folks. Would love to toss it out for everybody here. How do you think that relates, or maybe doesn't relate, that being on book and the difference in how you would be mixing to folks who are staring at the RTA?
That's my pet peeve.
All
That's
show.
a pet peeve, dude.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's sort of the fight, and that's the thing that Jamie spent so much time trying to fight against, which is a guy came in and smarted my room, and that sounds worse. It's like, you don't say, well, I hired a construction worker to come and Black and Decker my house. Like, you know what I mean? That's not, it's clearly not the way it works. And it's, and I think we've all been in a situation where is the objective to make a flat line on the screen, or is it to make something that sounds good? And this is something Dan and I were talking about the other day. The goal is not to get the exact same response on every seat necessarily. You can have the people that are in the back of the house and they're 180 feet away from the stage. if the person if we tune the PA in a way that they sound like they're right here in front of you, that's a fundamentally unnatural thing. So although we have the ability and the tools to do that with our technology and to make it sound like the third row, maybe we that maybe that's not always the goal. So absolutely, I think all of these things are RTAs. In particular, it was funny. We were just talking to Dave Ratt. Really psyched for that episode to come out because Dave was kind of one of my he's one of the big dogs for me. He's an audio giant, and
Same.
he has that clunky old school analog RTA that he brings around the front of house.
It's like
with the piece of string on it
yeah,
for
it's
his target
eight
curve.
bands.
Yeah, and it's so awesome. But it's like I'm of the firm belief that I'm always down for more context. I'm always down for having more information at my disposal so I can make a better decision. But I'm also of the belief that I don't want visual noise. So I set my scribble strips to black on channels I'm not using. I mean, I don't have my tap tempo button flashing in my eye. Like I want to remove as much of that, like Danny was saying, as much of that distraction as I can. So the RTA is there if I need to glance over and just get a visual confirmation on, okay, this is what I'm hearing. But look, the audience they're not coming to measure the show. They're coming to hear it. If the audience was all going to be sitting there with their own smart rigs on their laps, I would do things very differently, right? I think we all would. That's not what we're doing here. So at the end of the day, we got to we have to make our own calls on this. And it's great that we have this tool set available to us to allow us to make better, more informed decisions. But at the end of the day, it has to be our decision. That's kind of where I'm at on that.
I absolutely agree, and I think that something you said is really, really important. It's okay to look over there and get confirmation. That's a lot of what it's there for, is just to be able, during this whole downtime, I've been getting deeper and deeper into it, and I'm really realizing that Smart is a great tool to draw correlations from what you're seeing to what you're hearing. I know what I want my mix to sound like. I know what I've been able to accomplish before Smart. Now I want to know what that looks like in Smart, and then when I look over and it doesn't look like that, or something if I hear something and it doesn't, and I get confirmation from Smart that something's happening, I can make a very, very informed decision,
Well, I think, also, it's also about, we've all stood there and been like, something sounds weird, right? We've all had that. I don't know what it is, but something sounds weird. Okay, well, now you have the ability to put a mic there and see what weird is.
Yeah.
And then you can actually bridge that gap towards okay, well, let's address this. And how do we take it past something sounds weird, and how do we actually, take action against it and try to make it better? And that's where those tools come into play for a lot of people, I think. And Danny on Facebook says, "Yo, Kyle's mic sounds sick." Is the comment?
Yeah, and please, by all means, those are watching, please, ask some questions, drop some comments before us, snide remarks. Shout out to Audix.
Oh yeah, I got mine on too.
I'm not wearing mine right now, but at least
Not bad.
Yeah.
No, they're pretty cool. Yeah, thank you to Audix for these. They're the A150s. They're sweet headphones, man.
I actually just talked to one of my friends, Steve Young, is over at Audix now, and he was giving me kind of the background on these deals. They've been getting the kind of same response. Remember, I texted you guys and I was like, "Oh, the cable's too short." And Steve was he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna start shipping them with a longer cable." But it's kind of like the DJ style. It comes out, which I think is a great cable saver, because we always do that thing at the end of the night. I used to do them with my 7506s. I probably still do. But then you just wrap them around, and by about 80 shows in, you're buying a new pair. Hey, there's Steve.
Yeah.
Steve watches
So thank you, Steve. No, these things are great. Absolutely. And well, Kyle, did you ever do the one where you walk away from the desk and you didn't unplug your cans?
Oh, are you kidding me? Every night I used to I littered the earth with 7506s. I'd go back to Japan and be like, "Oh, Mr. Kyle, you left your headphone last time." Fuck, dude. Yeah. I left him in Pittsburgh. He said Pittsburgh, and that's the first thing I thought about was I left a pair of headphones in Pittsburgh, and I knew it. But it was $99 every time. I was like, but yeah, these things are kind of neat, man.
Yeah, I dig them. So they're very comfortable too. They're much more comfortable than what I was wearing before. So
nice. Start to figure those out, man. I'm gonna.
Yeah, dude. But yours are purple, so kind of got to weigh that, you know.
No, you're talking about Pavans.
Yeah,
Pavans are
but
perfect.
I'm gonna look for the purple edition of the. Everyone's got to have a purple edition, probably.
Yeah, that's true. I also want to talk about stuff that's maybe a common tool or workflow or a technique that you don't use. And I'll go. I have two. I avoid graphic EQs like the plague. And that was, the first time I met Ryan John, because we can't get through an episode without me talking about something that Ryan taught me. Here it is for this episode. He was just like, yeah, man, I don't use graphic EQs. And then he kind of went on to the next thing he was saying. And I was just like, you're allowed to do that? You're allowed to just be like, I don't want to use that tool? And so that was like a big moment for me where I realized, like, just because we have these things, you don't need to use them all, right? So I don't use those unless there's no other choice, because I think parametrics are a better choice for all the things I would do with an EQ. But also, and I know this is highly dependent on the type of artist that I work with and the type of rooms that I mix in and so on and so forth. But for the amount of time that people spend dialing in their drum gates, it's just never been helpful to me. It's a very, very small gain in most situations. And it's just so much time, and it's so fussy for me to go and try to get that in. It's just very, very low on my priority list. And it's something that I just don't tend to really go to. I'll occasionally go for an expander. It's a little gentler, but yeah, I mean, for all the discussion we've had about how important the gates are on the drum set, I just don't tend to go there. So that's something
Never mixed a metal band.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. If I was on stage with 5-finger death bench, I think it'd be a very different situation. So
A metal band.
yeah, or Fall Out Boy. So how'd you do that, Kyle? I mean, you had a bunch of analog gates on your Fall Out Boy drum inputs? Yeah.
Pavans on my rack. I had all kinds of drummers. I had 60s. I had everything I wanted. My rack was ridiculous. I had distressors for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like that
big old rack of distressors.
When you tell
was that when you were like, dude, I've made it? When you have that whole analog rack and you're like, yeah, I get whatever I want at this point?
Yeah. So that's when my lady was like, so when I met you, you were kind of that was your peak. So I'm on the downward. Like that's why I said, Jeff, you need to hook me up with that DJ shit. I'm gonna be at the roller rink.
Big old rack of distressors at the roller rink.
Backward skate only. It's gonna be dope. But yeah, when you tell a kid that you can build your dream front of house thing, are you kidding me? Like I was immediately XL4 distressors. Avalon pre's. I had a list. I had a double wide full of stuff. There was stuff in there I didn't even use. I just liked the way it lit up.
Yeah, dude, the Lake IOs. I remember you had those.
Man. Yeah. The old IOs, the Dolby
the old ones. Yeah.
And I took a Prism rig on my
with the
first
circles.
tour.
Yeah.
No. It was even before that. Like, I mean,
before
when I saw him at, I think I saw you at the Grove in Anaheim, and it was the it was the one with the like it didn't even have like what are the readouts on? You know, the ones that have the specific like they're alphanumeric readouts, not like an LED or anything like that. It's just like those ones. Yeah. I think they're the Clarides.
I think like the BSS OmniDrive copied off of, and then they all went to the Dolby ones with the big rings.
Yeah, with the big rings. Yeah, but, the sexy ones. Yeah.
Dude, don't tell a kid you can get whatever you want. Like I had like 3 Eventides, I had SPX 990s, I had everything. Holy smokes! Like, and you made the comment about doing insert points on every show and deciding where they're going to go. Yeah. I want to know how much money Deoxit lost because we're not using insert points anymore. Because on the back of like, remember those old EDAC connectors and all the stuff that you used to use for like insert points? If you didn't have a can of Deoxit and you were on tour, you were suffering. Like I had TT connections in the back of the XL4 and I'd walk out front and Dave Coyle would be out there spraying all my holes like every day, dude. And there was a case of Deoxit that was in my work box, and by the halfway through the tour, it was gone.
So, little console trivia. Jeff, you'll appreciate this. I know you're a big console trivia guy. There are some old Soundcraft boards out there that the standard tip, send, ring, return is opposite. And if you plug in your insert cable to those, it will not work, and horrible, crazy shit happens to your gain structure. So keep an eye out for those.
Dude, Soundcraft K2, I think, was one of those.
Yeah, K2 was one, and you'd run into them in almost every Northeast America club.
Yep.
Check out this gem I found.
What is that?
Oh, action figures.
Y'all remember the Fallout Boy action figures?
So
Yeah,
how about audio rules that you're not supposed to break, but you decide to break because you tried it and then ultimately ended up working better?
Well, that's sort of the same question, right? Like, what's this workflow that you issue?
Right.
Is that how you say it? Issue? I've never said that word out loud. I've just read it.
I tried to use the word eschew in a press release the other day, and I got so much pushback. Everybody on this panel, if I use the word eschew, everyone knows what that means, right? Or is that
I'm a high school dropout. I don't know what that means.
I gotta be
What type
honest.
of nut, right?
I got you.
But I'm not above looking it up when I see it. I'll do that.
I think you do a great job with the press releases, Jeff, and they should trust you. That's what I think.
Yeah,
put a shoe in the next one, and it's going to be. I'm going to let you guys know so you can see what
I'm going to be looking for it.
you've created in the world.
can you
Kyle.
do Jeff Brian Hawley?
There we go.
Kyle, I have a good answer that popped right into my head when you said that, which
Okay.
is my effect sends for the band that I mix regularly. All my reverb sends, they're all pre-fader, that's like against the law. You know what I mean to do that. But when I get into small clubs with them, and there's so much drums coming off the stage, my drum faders are down, or my
Right.
drum VCA's down, and then my drum verb goes away. So
A lot of
I
people do
run-
that for their delay, though. It's not a weird effects thing. But it is odder than normal.
yeah, so mine are pre-faders. So I have that drum verb even if I don't have drums in the PA. I have the verb. That's why I do it.
Yeah. I put out there, I was actually quite surprised that this seemed like a new thing that Drew was highlighting with running digital consoles in the red.
That episode just came out too, so check that out. Drew from Billie Eilish put out a great new episodes about running into the red. It's on our Facebook page.
So
'cause
is
I-
that a thing you've been doing? Is that a thing you've been doing before, Jeff?
Yeah, I would say that's one that I've been really happy with how things were sounding, and kind of like we're saying, not staring at the RTA. I had a similar thing going on where it's like, wait, and your immediate reaction is it's going to catch on fire, and it's a digital red. But hey, it doesn't sound bad. Kind of back to my other tip before. Well, there's not really a wrong way to do this. And so, yeah, I definitely wasn't not saying I'm anywhere near Drew's level or, that, I dug in as deeply as he did, which was really cool to actually see him kind of approach this in a very scientific manner. But that's one, yeah. Anybody else just happened to play around or notice that before? Or was that kind of you're scared when you see red and you run back to
It's been beaten in my head that like red wrong, like no, like slap on the hand, like never, like yeah.
That's such the interesting thing about it is when we went digital, everyone's like, it doesn't overload like analog. Don't clip your digital stuff. But I mean, when you have 96-bit accumulators or floating point inside your desk, you can't clip that desk internally. As long as you're not blowing out your outputs, you're good, right, Kyle?
Well, that was like a thing to get sound on old analog desks. To run it into the jammer, get it up there, like run it like a '78 Camaro with T-tops. We used to have this monitor engineer named Mike Baylor, and he'd do that all the time. He was like, just run it like a '78 Camaro. And sometimes that was the sound that you were creating, and it necessarily wasn't the square wave sound, but it was the distortion and the coloration of getting those preamps super hot. And then we figured out with Yamaha and the PM modules, it was the subgroups, and then it was running them super hot. So there were things that we were doing pre-digital that we were getting into the red, and it wasn't scaring us. It was actually adding to the coloration of the sound out the left and right, but that would be called a plug-in now, to tell you the truth. And I obviously I work for Midas for a long bit, and running those consoles in the red, it was one of the things I even taught in my class, and it was hard for people to understand. They were like, first digital consoles that came out, you got above zero, there was some kind of digital repercussion that you did not like. And that was with the D1s, the D5s, the PM1s, the PM5Ds. Like there was a repercussion of bad time if you got above 0. But when Midas released the Pro Series and started getting into it, or even XL8, you could jam those pre's like a 78 Camaro. And I want to try it on the Advantis really bad. Soft clipping effect. See, there it is. Driving the SSL into the red. By the way, check out Danny's stuff. He's making some single driver reference speakers, and they're getting a really killer response. I'd love to have Danny on the show as well. He's one of the greatest dudes. One of the greatest.
Well, Danny, send Kyle and I a message on Facebook. So, speak like for me, a thing that I don't know if it's a no, but like a thing that you wouldn't think to do that might sound wrong. And so, doing some hip hop tours early on, one of the things we noticed that in their side fills and wedges, they would just ask for like more and more and more, and like obviously we have these weapons. Line arrays and stuff these days that can just go beyond anything we can handle, right? And so what we thought about was like, like they're used to thinking about or used to hearing systems where eventually you would hear clipping or distortion because and once they hear that distortion, they think, oh, that's my limit. So if I'm going to keep turning it up until I get to that point. So we actually started running some of the playback channels or even that mix through a distortion within the effects engine and ran it back to the side just for the side fills to make it sound like it's at that point of breaking up, but not hurting the speakers. To create that faux effect of, hey, we're at this breaking point, we're at, and the mind trick worked, I don't necessarily recommend doing this all the time. I'm just saying, it's just,
When did we talk about that, Chris?
I don't know, an episode. We're 2 episodes in. No.
Well, we were talking with, when we had Jamie Anderson on, you said that because we're talking about psychologically, there's so much that plays into loudness. It's not just SPL. And so, that's a great example of like that ceiling of, if it's not distorting, like we can turn it up more. Like with modern tech, that's so far past the point of what's actually safe that we can't use that as the limit anymore. So we have to get away from that idea that if it's still super clean, then we should turn it up more. Like no, I think we've kind of peaked, and now we're getting to the point where like let's just run the show at an appropriate level, and not worry about whether or not the speaker can go louder than that, right?
Or keep a line 6 pod around at all times. So
right.
You always should, yes. Yeah. I agree. Yo, Kyle, what was that club in? There's one in Tucson. It's called The Rock. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Punk Rock Club, right? Club. Right. Yeah. I was there with Crosses, and I remember that console there.
The Deftone Crosses.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. I was covering for somebody for like a 2-week run. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Anyways, we were there, if you can believe that. But I remember the desk that was there. I was wondering if you could tell me what model it was. It was a Yamaha, but it was all rotary faders. And I remember specifically at soundcheck, like I was like, I saw the clip lights coming on faders. I was like, yeah, and I was like, oh crap, I gotta get I turned it down immediately, and at soundcheck it was like fine or whatever, right? Then like the club filled up with way too many people that probably but it was filled, and all my SPL went away, and I just like started cranking it into the red and stuff, and then the house guy came by and he's like, oh, you figured it out, huh? I was like, oh, shit. I was like, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, like
it had to be the Yamaha like 3206 or it's a monitor console. That's why it was all rotary.
Yep.
And I used to have one of those in Spring Tucky, Missouri at the Juke Joint too. And the peak lights would drive me insane, but it wasn't there. It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't peaking. It was just a light that scared the crap out of you,
Yep. I know that console.
Daniel, how about you in a theater world? What's a no that you decided to try and it worked out for the better or something like that?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is when I toured, which I haven't done in earnest in a few years. I would tune without any type of FFT or RTA. which I think has become less common. And I think it's really good for the industry that it's less common and that people are using those tools. And I'm a big believer in those tools and in, Bob McCarthy's work and process and all of that. But I got to a point where for the sake of time, I could do, in the same way that Jamie and Michael talk about how smart is a tool and it's what you do with it. I got practiced enough where, because I was using the same pile of speakers and the same cable every day, I could do, like, my verification was, okay, if each element on the left is the same as on the right, I'm verified. I can hear a polarity inversion. And then with setting delay, if you practice it, you can do that by ear and be dead on with the analyzer. And the types of EQ changes we're likely to make that are going to track over a wide part of the venue are all big, gentle EQ changes. And well, if you practice that, you can do it pretty well by ear as well. So it was something where, analyzers are great. Of course, when we launched the tour, we put a microphone on every speaker. We did our first pass at like things that you can't really do so well by ear, like main sub alignment with a microphone. But down the road, did it by ear, and it was great.
It's a novel concept to be using.
Dude, that
your
is super
ears,
novel.
right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And I think a lot of people might think that I would take the opposite position of that, but I absolutely agree. And I actually have an article where I wanted to test that, and I went into a venue. I got hired to put front fills in a venue. And I went in and I said, I'm going to do the whole tuning by ear. I didn't bring any of my stuff. And I went in to put them in, and I went back the next day. I said, okay, now I'm going to do it the way I usually would do it. I'm going to measure everything. And the level setting came within 1 dB both times, and the delay came within 2.5 milliseconds.
Nice.
So the point is, and it's not about me
Michael's
going,
awesome. Everybody give him a round
no,
of
that's
applause.
not the point at all. The point at all is the same thing. It's just about, this is a skill that can be learned. You are the one who has to make this decision. The analyzer helps you in that process, but it is no substitute for actually having a concept of what you're doing and spending time actually listening to the sound coming out of the system, right? That's the whole point. So,
Yeah.
so
It can be done without. Yeah, it can be done without an analyzer, but like, you got to be real good to do that, and that's something you aspire to, I think, for sure.
But try. I mean, if you never try it, you're not going to. So, like, there's nothing wrong with saying, let me rough it in by ear and then check myself. That's why we have these tools.
Yeah,
There's also the great trick for setting delay by ear that Steve Bush, who works for Meyer, taught me is, if you listen to pink noise and you get the two sources real close in level and real close in time, the same way that you would if you were using an analyzer, then as you start to sweep the time difference around, as you start to sweep your time on the delay around, you're not listening for a coherent impulse anymore. Now you're listening to comb filtering. And as your time difference gets smaller, your comb frequency gets higher. Right, if it's 1 millisecond of difference, you're canceling at 500. But if it's a tenth of a millisecond, you're canceling at 5K. So when you do that with pink noise and you sweep it around, you hear it go up and then you hear it go down. It kind of sounds like, and then you sweep back, and at the top, right at the top, you're dead on. Right, that means you've put the first cancellation out of band, either of the speaker or of your hearing. So that's how you can get within a tenth of a millisecond every time if you just practice that a few times. And something you can practice with a pair of computer speakers and a DAW.
Tenth of a millisecond.
See?
Nice. I'm going to try it and see if we can do it.
I
have
have physics reasons
Makes sense.
for that. I want to trust that too, for sure.
Shout out to Denny Miller, by the way, who's watching us. My man Denny's one of the I consider one of the best system engineers in the world. And we got
There is a guitar tech watching our show right
Really?
now. Shug is watching.
Shug's watching. Dude, right on.
Shug, shout out to Pavan right now.
All right. Yeah. I'm not watching the Facebook one, but yeah. Yo, Shug, we got to get lunch soon. Tacos, bro.
See?
Yeah. Shug is guitar tech to the stars.
Colin, is that your mic? That little orb thing in front of you there?
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Like the system wouldn't recognize my metric halo, but this was my backup unit, and like I just rescued it from my parents' house. It's a blue eyeball. Like it was from the early 2000s. I don't know.
That is awesome.
That's cool.
I have
Yeah.
one of those from.
How does it
my
sound? I can't hear it.
It sounds like you, only louder. So I
Right,
think it's
cool.
perfect doing its job.
I have one of those. It's similar to that for a spirit box because I watch way too much Ghost Adventures. But it's just like a cheesy little plug-in.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Oh, one thing while we're talking about Suge, can I throw out something else real quick?
Yeah, man.
All right. Suge like turned me on to this company called Build Your Own Clone. But like, I built this little stomp box or whatever. It's like a distortion unit. It's like a tube screamer or whatever. But I was gonna say, like, I learned so much building it, and like it's such a cool like project during these downtimes. Like and it gave me some practice on some PCB stuff or whatever. So like,
What were you? Did you bust out the soldering iron, man?
Dude, he
I
had
have
the whole
whole
step-by-step
thing.
photos on his Facebook page. I was watching him build it like last week. He had like one picture with all his things dropped in, another picture with the next bits dropped
Wow.
in.
Yeah,
Pavan was getting down last week. I was watching him.
dude, it was fun, and like Suge inspired me to do it, man. I was just like looking, like he actually dropped me a thing from StuMac that they were doing a live like build your own thing, and I was like, wow, dude, like, I mean, I don't know, I'm honestly getting ready to mod a couple of Apex Dominators that I have that like they're no use to me for front of house, like that was a protective thing, right? And like, but like there's a mod that Magic Death Eye came out with, and I gotta throw them props, like and just search it, Magic Death Eye, if you guys have an Apex Dominator that needs to be modded. But yeah, I haven't done any PCB work, and like this was a good way to get my I've done plenty of like cable building and stuff like that, so I have all the stuff. I just have never worked on PCB boards, and like this was something that I wanted to do, and like thanks,
the
Joe.
other one that I've heard that you can try, and I think it's on a tube screamer. I know you can do it on the Boss, like the core, like orange distortion pedal. Is just basically play around with tossing it, just a simple LED in the circuit, move it around, and there's like a sweet spot where you can take like a $39 Boss distortion pedal, and hey, now it sounds like this, maybe not quite like a top end boutique guitar pedal, but it's kind of was a fun thing that a couple of my buddies have played with. It's on my bucket list at some point to get to, but yeah. So you said it was BYOC, Build Your Own Clone. That's the one that you.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I built the tube screamer. I'm looking for, like, Suge has some like crazy one that they're always out of stock on that he wants to build, and I'm looking for new ones to. I don't know. I got the itch now. Like like this worked. Like I was surprised when it worked. I was like, wow, I made something.
I want to hit one more comment. So Danny had mentioned when we're talking about like using your ears versus analyzing. Would you guys say the skills akin when musicians can't read music, but they can still be amazing at playing music?
Yep.
And I think another analogy that I know I've talked about is that anomalies. I don't play any instruments. I'm not a musician, yet I'm a sound guy. Been a sound guy my whole life. I play the console, right? That's what I play. And so I think there's, to that degree, I'm never biased, or for the most part, in say, I'm not biased towards drums or not biased towards guitar or things like that. I think I can have a little bit more of a unbiased view when I'm coming to the mix. And I'm not saying that everyone who's a musician is biased, but I think there's some people like, oh, he's a drummer and he mixes. Oh, he's a guitar player and he mixes. So at least that would be my response to that comment.
I think okay, so I'm going to show my music school colors here. If you're talking about
Berkeley grad.
Well, okay, so written notation, right? That is not music. It's a system that we came up with to describe music, to communicate music. It's descriptive, right?
What was your
So-
instrument, Michael? First
Piano.
off?
Piano.
Piano. Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was going to be funk bass.
Not funk bass. That's Jeff. Jeff plays the funk bass.
The
I've
fedora.
heard Jeff has sent me some of his tracks. Actually, it's pretty nasty stuff. So that's cool. We'll have to get some of that on the show sometime, Jeff. And I would say the same thing about something like an analyzer. That is not the sound. That's a tool that we've created to help us understand sound, to communicate the principles, and to sort of give us more understanding of what it is. But it's the same thing. It's we go on and create a whole structure around this concept to help us understand it and communicate it. Just and it's the same thing as sheet music. I mean, Paul McCartney is like, and he can't read music. It's like one of the most successful and incredible musicians of all time. And he wrote an opera. He wrote an opera, and like
Michael's favorite artist. Said
my
he totally
favorite
would.
dude. He's the man. And some guy had to sit there and write down the opera. Paul would sing it and sit at his piano and play it, and some dude had to write it down, right? So I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in the same way that reading music is a good skill for a musician to have because it deepens your understanding, I think, you know, understanding the theory of sound and the fundamentals of sound help us. But at the end of the day, we're all this stuff exists so we can describe what we're hearing, right?
I think it's different depending on which side of the art and science line you are. So in the case of tuning a sound system by ear, I think it's probably less somebody who's a virtuoso who doesn't have a grounding in the theory so much as somebody who's very, very well versed in the music theory, well enough that they don't need to read music, but they can improvise. I think on the art side of it, though, there are absolutely people who can walk up to a desk and, as several of you have mentioned, turn a knob because it sounds good without necessarily having a good technical explanation for it. And if on the artistic side, that's what's serving the production, then that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know I have some friends who you know, when it comes to troubleshooting, they're completely like, I have no idea how to fix this. I don't even know where to start because they don't have the technical foundation, but that's not what it is for them. It's all about mixing in an artistic way, and they have a very, very clear idea of artistically what this mix is supposed to sound like and what kind of sounds they're going for with the artist. And so that kind of, it's a little bit of a foreshadowing to the conversation that we had with Dave Ratt for the episode next week. And he talks about getting people on your crew that could complement each other. It's okay if your system tech isn't super good with the artsy side of it, because that's not their job. Their job is to be able to understand how the system works and fix it when it breaks. And it's okay if, you know, this guy's role is that he's really strong and he's really good at moving gear around and packing trucks and getting this stuff to the show. And the system tech can't pack a truck. He doesn't have to be able to pack a truck because we got a person for that. So yeah,
I'm really good at catering, Michael. I'm really good at catering.
So yeah, I mean, I like to try to be well-rounded. I like to try to understand all the roles in the production. I like to, you know, I can struggle through some programming on a Lenny console. I'm not an LD. You don't want me to be your LD, but if the LD had a heart attack and died, the show, I would be able to jump in there and finish the show at least. So
Nope.
I think that helps, but you know, there's nothing wrong with saying like, I'm really more focused on this topic and this is where my interest lies and this is where I want to develop my skill set. And I think that's fine, you know?
Yeah, I would just put out there, I think, related to your LD skills, as long as you really like red.
R80, just on everything all the time. Yeah.
There you go.
No, it's 27.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know. R80 is the blue. Yeah. R80 is the blue. R27 is the red. Yeah. 26, 27.
There we go.
We did a show.
We've done how many of the Facebook Lives things have we done now?
6?
Yeah, I think this is our 6th one, I think, yeah.
So you know what's coming up. Since I messed up the whole Friday the 13th thing and I said there was like 14 of them this year or whatever the case may be.
There's 2. Oh, we're doing a Halloween episode?
Yeah, we got to do a horror story episode.
Okay, dude, because
Yes.
we should, and I think about Halloween time, we should be crossing 100,000 downloads of the Signal Noise podcast, or we're coming up on that milestone, which is pretty cool. So,
congrats, yo.
What's Kyle doing? Uh-oh.
Yeah,
There's a horror story waiting to happen right there, Kyle. What's happening? I'm not sure what's happening.
Sorry, at least my pants were on this time. I was getting my mask ready, bro. You don't
okay,
even
cool.
know.
So yeah, we'll do some horror story stuff. Yeah, Randy the Roadie will make an appearance.
Oh man, Randy hasn't been out in a while.
All right. Oh my lord.
Oh,
What?
jeez.
That's-
Look how
Nice.
weird this is. Look how weird this is.
It's-
What? Why do you
Perfect.
have that? Why do you have that in your house?
My lady made it for me. It's
Well,
hold on.
Wait, are you sure? How many? I don't know where the holes are. Okay. All right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Here, look it up.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I
everyone.
think
We've clearly
that's
hit
our
the-
cue. That's our cue.
All right has been called.
Yes.
Thanks
Take
to
care, everyone.
Thanks
Get
to Pavan
weird.
and
Get
Daniel
weird,
and
dude.
Jeff for
See.
joining us.
Get
And
weird. It's a
Kyle's
bald
time for-
knobbers, Max.
past Kyle's bedtime. So we're gonna
Look up the
wrap
bald
it up.
knobbers.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, guys. It's awesome.
have a good.